Hi, I'm Deirdre Kornstrom with the Minecraft Education team, and I'm here at ISTE in San Antonio, and we're going to talk about diversity in ed tech for the next few minutes. So I'd love for each of you to introduce yourselves, how you work in education, and also how people can follow or get in touch with you.
My name's Chris Wheeler. I'm a teacher at Fairhaven School District. You can check me out on Twitter at technoteacher.com. I teach a makerspace where I have a lot of video game design. We also build in Minecraft, use some other games to accomplish some of our goals.
Thanks.
Is it good now? Okay. Do you want to say it again?
Is that good now? Okay. My name's Chris Aviles. I am a teacher at Fairhaven School District in Fairhaven, New Jersey. You can check me out on Twitter at TechDubTeacher. I run a makerspace at my school where we design video games. We learn with Minecraft. We use some other video games to accomplish some of our goals that we had set out for our kids in our makerspace.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Thomas, and I am a regional technology coordinator in the DC Public Schools area, actually right outside DC. And I am also the founder of the EduMatch project, which connects educators across the world to grow and learn together. So very excited to be here.
And I'm Rafranz Davis. You can find me on Twitter at Rafranz, Rafranz Davis, all one word. And I am an executive director of professional and digital learning for Lufkin ISD here in Texas. I'm also a global Minecraft mentor and a gamer to the heart.
Thank you all. Thank you. So I think there's great intention from a lot of people to bring more diversity to ed tech. Can you talk about some things that seeing it at ISTE this year, just compared to last year, that you're hopeful about?
I can speak to that quite a bit. Our first of all, our board president Mila Fuller, Dr. Mila Fuller. Let me put some respect on her name. I think when I saw her come on stage, that instant connection that I felt, the language that I've seen throughout the conference, the intention of having a diversity represented on the stage, not just in like race, but in stories and locale. And this is the first time I've really felt that deep of it, even an international presence here at ISTE. And I'm a part of a few initiatives here to continue this. And I came here 4 years ago, and I didn't the diversity. I could count the number of people that look like me on one hand, not two. This time, I've lost count. Like, I don't know everybody. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, just to echo that, as I make my way around, just even conversations like this, for you guys being so forward thinking to host something like this, conversations I've had with other attendees at other sessions, it's nice to see that this is something that people are coming around to speaking about, and that we're all recognizing that a diversity of voices is something that makes us all better. So I'm excited by that.
Absolutely. I definitely want to second what both Rafranz and Chris said. And, the stories that are coming out and the stories that are being shared, then we are all learning and growing from one another. And that's definitely what we need to do in our field. We need to continue to share our stories. So I'm very encouraged by the diversity in thoughts, in presenters, in geographic locations. And I've definitely seen a change for the better this year.
Is there anything specific you've seen this year that you wouldn't have expected in another year that's been a surprise to you?
Not. I would say that probably it would be the intentionality to take your word and to take your word about just making sure that different perspectives are represented and that everyone can kind of see themselves in different contexts.
And even to give Sarah a plug, Sarah, hosts the EduMatch program where she connects educators all over the world with like-minded educators. And she hosted a great event, at ISTE where we all sat family style, everybody talking about, issues like this. And then we left a breakfast this morning of PLN award winners, and there was a diverse cast of winners in there as well. So it's nice to see that going on.
It is. So sometimes we walk around the booths at the show floor at ISTE, and we don't see a lot of diversity represented in the ed tech companies. What advice would you give companies for reaching out and connecting with different communities?
Oh, let me take that one for a second. Aside from ISTE, I think that I'm fortunate to be connected within a lot of different companies. And there was one particular that I went to that they have an education event and a consumer event. And the education event, there were women on stage, but there were barely, the representation of like engineers and creators of color within those stages. And I was frustrated by that. While at the same time, people within the company were like, "Hey, we're diverse," and I was like, "Dude, you don't get it." But then the consumer event was a few weeks later, and I was crying at home watching on Twitter because I was like, my daughter will see a black woman who has coded this program, a black man who is leading this initiative, a Hispanic woman who is speaking her language while she's talking about the platform that she's created. And I thought about the kids at our school that we did a hackathon, and I watched a kid who was a senior in high school in tears because he was talking to an engineer from Mexico, and he has never done that before. And I think that you have to understand the impact of what that representation can have and have some intention in doing it. And that's, if there's a lesson anywhere, it is don't be afraid to say we need to not be one single story within our company. And to quote Miss Jenny Magera, we need to be a collection of stories. And if people maybe see that, then maybe they will see themselves as maybe users of what we create, or maybe future creators of it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think to go along with that, I'm kind of the mindset when you look in the same places, you find the same thing. And so I feel like these companies who are serious about diversity need to cast their net a little bit wider. Because the idea that you can't find talented, diverse people is absolute nonsense. You're not looking in the right spots.
Right. Where should they look?
I mean, I've heard of these ed tech companies going to historically black colleges. I've heard them of going to the inner cities. And stories that really have inspired me is when they've looked around and they haven't found the programs where they would find the diversity that they're looking for, they create them. If they're going to be in the ed tech space and, as a full-time teacher, as full-time educators, everybody gets in this for the kids and to make, the world better for them. So if you're serious about being a company that wants to be diverse and wants to have a diverse cast of voices, either go out and cast your net wider or start making your own programs and, make your own pipeline to get what you want into your company.
Yeah, and I would definitely second that in terms of going and actually looking for people in multiple places, and definitely we are out there, and so just going and also tapping into existing networks. If there is if there are some people that do good work, then asking them, who else do you know that does good work that looks like you, or that that we should know about. That's definitely another good way to help grow.
And any of you, could you share some of those networks that either other educators might want to join or participate in, or some of the ed tech companies might want to connect with, and getting feedback on their product or how they could be more inclusive in their design?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the use of social media, then the world is pretty much wide open. You can have anyone and anything at the palm of your hand. So connecting with diverse groups on Twitter, on Voxer.
Match.
Oh, thank you.
Hashtag, she won't say it because it's her thing. Hashtag EduMatch. Like the thing that I love about what Sarah has created with EduMatch is that it has grown beyond what she even initially believed. And the deal is because educators want to be connected together. But to your point about companies with what networks can we get to get feedback on product, that kind of thing, I think that for one thing, you have to quit looking to what we consider influencers is going to be the voice of what you do. And I'm saying that as someone who is often contacted as an influencer. That does not count for Minecraft. Call me for anything. But when it comes to, but it seems to be like every time we go to these places, we see the same people. And it's the same person with 50,000 Twitter followers. And we don't believe you when we see that. And I don't think people realize that. That tweeting, a person with 1 million Twitter followers tweeting that out in education means nothing when we within this circle, we know better. So get people who are using it, get students, get somebody who isn't even on Twitter but is really, really passionate about it, and that we believe.
So it can look like just lip service if you see someone with an influencer, a lot of followers attached to a product or announcement or news, but you want to see the people who are actually in there using the product and being able to give real feedback. Sense, yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about EduMatch and what that is? Because I think that would be so helpful for people to hear more about.
Okay, sure. Yeah, EduMatch is a global network of educators coming together and learning over different forms of social media. So it started out one night I was having a Voxer chat with Franz, and we were talking about gamification in math. And my cousin had recently told me about what he was doing in his classroom. I said, the two of you need to meet. Is there something out there that'll do that? And so with Franz still on Voxer, I was just like, all right, I'm going to put a tweet out. Let's see, what comes back. And someone from Australia connected and said,
That's awesome.
yeah, let's try this. So, I mean, since then, people have joined, and it has grown. They've brought their own ideas, and we're just very passionate about, getting stories out there, amplifying one another, and, just practitioner voices being the piece that's amplifying one another.
That's really wonderful. So games, let's talk a little bit about games. Do you think that games can help make EdTech more accessible to a diversity of students around the world?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm an avid gamer. I love gaming. I still play when I get a chance. And so for me, one thing I would love to see in video games, like we were talking before we stepped in here, the default setting to so many games is the white male character. And as somebody who uses gamification, I use a lot of game-based learning. I actually teach, concepts with AAA games. And I have a folder of research which I go into and I check into every time. And I was looking at a couple studies I had about video games and video game characters and representation over the last 12 or so years. And main characters over the last 12 or so years in video games was about, they said over 60% were white males. Only 8% were females. 10% were African American. Less than 3% were Hispanic or, Latino. And so for me, the ability to not only have those characters represented in games, but to also go beyond the stereotypes with which they're represented. Always having the black athletes, always having the Hispanic drug dealers, always having the girl who is in need of rescuing, or if she's not in need of rescuing, you're wondering how she's able to do what she's doing while she's wearing what she's wearing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this idea that you can't have a compelling story, a compelling game, unless you have a white male lead with a female in distress is ridiculous to me. And sometimes games get it right. One of the best games I played recently was The Walking Dead, the original. And the main character is a black guy, and he's a college professor, but the game still starts with him in handcuffs because he just killed his wife who had cheated on him. Why couldn't he just be the black college professor and the protagonist of the game? What did that add to the story? And so for me, it's the intentionality and the representation that I think, will cascade down to kids. And I actually want to pass to Franz because she was talking about a great point when we were out there about how when students and kids are young, what they see compared to as they get older.
Yeah, so I teach a coding camp for our kids, and I happen to be able to teach one specifically for all students of color that are in a specific STEM program. And we were teaching them to, they were building games with Scratch. And so the first thing that they were talking about, when I get on the game, the first thing I do is make my character. And so I was like, really? Like, what games do you? And they went into all of that, and every one of them, the girls, boys, they were like, yeah. And they were talking about what their character looks like. It looks like them, and they wanted that. And I thought about games that I play, and I play The Sims, and I do that too. And I play Minecraft, and I go make my skin someplace, and then I import my skin first. And my whole thing was, what difference would it make if when a kid logged into a game, they didn't see a character at all? They saw create your character, no representation of a character, and then another button to choose from a selection. Because then you could see how many kids are going to click that create a character, but they won't be impacted by what they see and build upon that, and instead create what they imagine or create in the vision of themselves versus going to look at the templates and choosing only what's there. Minecraft Steve is awesome, and Alex, is that her name? I never play her, I'm sorry. Alex is awesome, and yes, they're supposed to be raceless, cultureless, but that's not typically what we see, which is why we make our own.
So in that designing their own characters, what features do we want to see in there? Skin color you talked about. What else?
I mean, it's not just skin color. I think the beauty of making a Minecraft skin, for those of us that make them, is that mine has pink long hair, and she has on a really, an army backpack because my nephew helped me and he thought that was awesome. And she has like a patch on one knee, and the bottom of the leg is a different color. So I think the ability to not have limits, and I know this is not really about Minecraft, but that's kind of what I'm tying it to. That's the beauty of that game itself, is to be able to create without limits. To me, that should start with the character, which reflects the person that's playing.
So
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would like to see is that I used to play games a lot. And I have my Pokemon Go
Oh,
right here.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, but yeah. So I'm kind of addicted to this thing right here. But even in the Pokemon Go game,
How is San Antonio for Pokemon Go?
oh, it's pretty good. There's
There's a
Pokestops
lot around
everywhere.
here. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, even with that game, the ability to customize my character is still kind of limited. Like the girl has a long ponytail. Like our skin color might be the same, but long ponytail. I have natural hair. So there's nothing in there that represents that. And we were talking outside a little bit about growing up in the '90s and going to the video arcades. And I remember that there was a ski game or something like that where there was nobody in the game that looked like me. Even in one of my favorite games, Rock Band, I didn't see any.
I remember.
I didn't care. I rocked out in Rock Band like
Well,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
my favorite game when I was little was Street Fighter 2, and I wouldn't play anybody but Vega.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's come a long way, and I really do appreciate what like Minecraft is doing. I would say as a whole in the industry, then there's still a long way to go.
Long way to go, and having characters that either look like you or that you can customize to any way you want. What else? What other? You can go back and sort of bring it to the Minecraft game designers. What else would you want to see in the game to help it feel more accessible? People feel more at home as they come into it with different backgrounds.
To the Minecraft game itself. I think that what the part that I love about Education Edition specifically is from the teacher training part. I love that training world exists. You can get a little bit lost in it because you really don't know how many different stops. Like you can go throughout the world and still looking for those big question marks to find something else to do. But I do love that particular training part exists for teachers. That's kind of a necessary thing. But what I found is even for me, there were things that I didn't know about like some of the crafting stuff. I've always been like, oh, let's just figure out what happens if I put this thing together. But I really do like that exists. And I don't even know what else to add. I mean, our kids play Minecraft on every platform. Phones and computers and everything. We would love for there to be some browser-based version so they can be played on other things. And hint, however, I don't know if that's ever in the plans, but I think if you really want to make it accessible to a lot more kids that may find that it may be a limited version per se, but I think having that accessibility should be primary regardless. Then I think that's something that should definitely be considered.
For me, I think the greatest addition of the Education Edition was the camera and the portfolio aspect. Just because, so it's interesting is I'll have a group of kids that one of their favorite things to build was like an Aztec temple. And they would take those pictures and push it out to the real world. But then they started to take selfies. And you start to see all their diverse skins lined up. And they were taking group pictures together. And so I think for me, obviously, like Franz is saying, the more hands that we can get the game into, the more kids that can be playing the game and using it, but also the more that they can share their experiences, especially among people who are like them, who look like them, who are similar to them. I'll often go to a neighboring school district in New Jersey, and they have a 98% Hispanic population, and they're a Title I school district. And I'll go over and I'll bring all of our laptops because I'm in a pretty affluent school district, mostly white. I'll bring our laptops over and I'll spend my time, on preps or when I have off, and go play with them just so they can experience. And it's something I think that the more hands we can get it into, the more ways that the kids can share their creations, they share their skins, how they're playing together. Even maybe getting classrooms in Mexico together to play with classrooms in America. Let's build together, something like that. So even maybe thinking about Minecraft as a tool to expose diversity to an array of people, I think would be fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that connecting kids aspect. That's fantastic. Another thing that I really love about Minecraft is the fact that the kids learn by creating and building, and I think that is a great thing. Doing some research right now where a student is creating his own videos in order to learn English. So seeing exactly the impact that them being able to create as active learning, then that's just phenomenal, and that just goes quite a way. Instead of just kind of getting that sit and get, it's So I love the fact that they're able to build and to to produce something in Minecraft. So yeah, absolutely.
One of our goals with Minecraft is really to reach out to that Minecraft player community, the players who are, passionate about the game, and introduce concepts like coding. So the Hour of Code tutorials with Code Builder. And our hope is, and our goal is, to reach students that maybe wouldn't have considered coding as a career path. As you think about your students, do you see ed tech, different technologies, things like game-based learning, gamification, reaching different students and introducing them to fields that they just maybe wouldn't have even considered as possibilities or options?
Absolutely. I always joke with my kids, when we were young, we were told never to get in cars with strangers, and now we, summon them to our house, or, we go sleep in strangers' houses and stuff like that. But I think maybe even more important than that is the understanding of the people who are making the ed tech are controlling the future, and so these games, these programs, this ed tech, if it's not made by a diverse array of people who are all adding their voices and are all kind of checking each other, you're going to get products that are going to be toxic. And you've seen in recent news, some of these major companies are having issues of toxicity, and that's because they haven't really committed to this idea, that the voices matter, that representation matters, that you need to understand, what people of color, what women go through. I can tell you story after story of, the way technology has affected me personally. I was part of that Airbnb Will Brown situation. I got a whole page full of people denying me to stay in their house, but then they'll go and rent it out to somebody else. So it's that idea that, maybe somebody could have spoke to that within the company to save them that embarrassment, So I think that's really important.
Oh, I didn't know if you were going to go. Go ahead.
Okay, well, just you brought up the Hour of Code and the Minecraft tutorial, and I know that in my district there have been some schools that have really jumped onto that, and just seeing the kids just take that and be inspired to learn more, teach themselves, to go beyond that. I know that there's quite a few students at one middle school I visited during Hour of Code that may have started there and then went further, and that's what it's all about being a self-directed learner. That's the goal for our students. So I feel like that's so sometimes that might be the spark that they need.
I think that I'll kind of give another side of that. I think that it depends on how we present it to them. If we present it to them and I've seen it and lived it and watched it. We present it to them in the way that it is created, where they're online, they're playing, they're building. Kids don't always make that connection to I can actually translate this into something I can create. To them, they're playing a game, but they're not making the connection to I can be the creator of that thing, or I can take that and create with it. And I think it's bigger than even having the people of color behind the scenes that they can visibly see. That absolutely is a part of it. They need to see that there are people like them that are making these things. But I think that we have to do a better job of holding our EdTech creators to a higher standard in translating how the kids are learning to code, and that they take that code and then it can be something else that they make. They're not just moving robots. They're not just making a rainbow up here in Minecraft. They can actually go build something that didn't exist before. And I think that's the part that we often don't make that connection with kids, and we have to make sure we do that.
All right. So anything else that you want to add? Any resources that you want to share?
Definitely check out EduMatch. If you're an educator looking to get connected and cast your net far and wide to meet some really talented people, whether you're an ed tech company or an educator yourself, definitely check out EduMatch.
Great, and definitely I have to give a huge shout out to the Microsoft community, because we're starting to really integrate that into our district. So looking at different resources that are available there. So,
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. That's great. So I would love to close with kind of a fun thing. What's the most amazing thing that either you've built or you've seen in Minecraft?
My Beyonce World. It's going to launch. I was hoping that I would have it ready to launch like by my birthday, but that did not happen, as with failure. But it's coming. Like I'm excited. I can even say I'm making a Beyonce World.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see it.
My students working together to create a take on their school and kind of pitch that to administrators about what a possible redesigned school would look like. Just to have so many of my kids working together on a project and everybody respecting each other's space and respecting the work put into it. So that was really cool to see.
And having that as a way to communicate with school leaders too, right? That
Yeah,
sounds like
I
an
mean,
amazing
they
opportunity.
came in and they kind of, they said, hey, here's what we think the school could look like. Let us walk you through the world, and here's why we would want X, Y, and Z, and see that 3D representation. And for me, especially, the work that goes behind, the scenes, the teamwork that the kids put forth at the age I teach was really exciting.
That's awesome, Chris.
And for me, I would say that it would be having gone to Pi Academy and just playing with, the different pieces, like learning about how these different pieces work together and how there's Minecraft on the Pies and learning how to do like the camera add-on and, when you walk into a particular block, how it'll take like a picture of you. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So thank you so much for being here and taking the time to share your experiences and your thoughts. I think it'll be really valuable for everyone. All right. Have a great ISTE. Thanks.
Thank you.